Cosmic here, and welcome back to another Legends of Runeterra video. Today we're going to be talking about the Mark of Kalista, or just a Kalista Elise type of deck that has been made popular. Full credit to Teal Red. I want to get that out of the way right now. Back on, I think it was Wednesday, I'd have to go back and look at the stream, I came across a couple different Kalista variants. You know, everyone loves the Lucian Kalista aggro variant. And Teal Red is known as a player. They're number one on EU, or at least last I looked. They've always been top three. They play nothing but Shadow Isles and Ionia, so perhaps not surprising that they've been able to take this list, or a similar list to this, to a high win rate percentage. But I saw that they were playing Kalista and Elise. I saw they were in this pattern. Again, I did this on stream. I looked at their previous stream, saw that they were using the typical Dark Water and Deathmark combo, and figured, okay, I know where this list is going to go, and I built it from there. So this is not their list one for one. But the important thing to mention here is that this goes back to a deck that I called Mark of Hecarim about a month and a half ago in the official Discord. I posted a list in my Discord as well. That was just Zed and Hecarim as more of a kind of mid-range variant, right? You have Zed for kind of those early draws, very aggressive creature by itself. It has a way to give you an ephemeral unit back every single turn to increase the consistency of your death mark. But then also Hecarim is obviously very good for his level up condition, which can then further boost this kind of aura buff that makes all your units a lot stronger. So this has been a shell that has more or less been around for just about forever. You know, beyond that, before the Mark of Hecarim, as we called it, Hecarim was obviously very popular in that time, be it with Zed, be it with Elise in a couple of conditions. But having that Mark of the Isles and Deathmark combo, it used to be this 4 mana, 2 card, buff one of your guys +3/+3 and kill one of your opponent's units. Now, if depending on what you're buffing, that could be either really, really good or just kind of a, hey, I need to fill this slot, I need a blocker. So nothing too terribly surprising about this list overall if you've been following Legends of Runeterra for the last couple months, but I think this is certainly a more aggressive take on the list, where I'd say the Zed and Hecarim build is certainly more of like this mid-rangey kind of grindy, maybe a few higher end type of cards. But I think right now, in terms of knowing that Karma decks are just all over the place, and you want to have an aggressive list that can punish them out and still have a late game answer in terms of Kalista and Rekindler, I think this is definitely a more well-equipped list to take on the current meta. So without further ado, let's get into the actual cards. And up first is going to be Elise. Again, if you spent some time following Legends of Runeterra, this card should be no surprise. It's a 2-drop, 2/3 with Fearsome, so it's hard to block, usually gives you a little bit of damage in that early game. But what's interesting here is really that it's going to summon a Spiderling, which is just a 1/1 spider. And we think about Kalista and we think about her level up condition, Elise actually plays in very, very well to it, while still allowing you to play this more aggressive game, as it were, because Elise wants to flip and get her other conditions. So to do that, you need to have 3 other spiders in play. But then once you do, she becomes very aggressive, getting the +2 attack. So sure, her health stays the same, just +2 attack, remains fearsome, but then also gives all your other spiders fearsome and challenger. So you can actually line this up where your spiders are, taking those chump hits for you, while Elise, and maybe in some cases Kalista, are swinging through uncontested, making sure you're getting that extra damage. And again, fearsome just being very strong as it is, was toned down about a month and a half ago now for the Shadow Isles list, but it's still very strong in terms of they have to have a 3 power attack unit to block, and then even beyond that, right, your spiders can take those first couple hits for you. Now, after that does become a little bit difficult to really kind of recoup your board, make sure you get more spiders, but we do have a spell that can help us out with that. You'll see that in a few moments here. But really, it's surprising how strong Elise can really fit into this with a Kalista package, and how the two really bounce off one another. So it's not just a typical, spider aggro glass cannon build. It also has this potential to play a very strong mid game and even late game thanks to Kalista. So really quick, moving on from there, we then have Kalista. It's a 3-drop. So again, what's really nice is you can go 2-drop Elise and a 3-drop Kalista. Not always ideal, but depending on what your opponent may be playing, that's sometimes fine. It's a 4/3 with Fearsome, so again, very aggressive stats, and you've seen 3 allies die. So when you take into consideration, again, the spider package, maybe you have things like Vile Feast, and you have the ability to kind of keep spawning these spiders turn after turn, you can see how you're very quickly to level this up. And not that, a 1/1 Spiderling is perhaps a lot of pressure on your opponent's life total. Once you have Kalista on board, they still don't necessarily want to block it, so you have the chance then when it goes to your turn, they're trying to swing into you, your spiders get even more value for you. But what's really important then is her level up side. So she's a 5/4, again, very beefy stats, a very aggressive card, but then she's going to bring back the strongest ephemeral unit that had died already. So really, there's a couple different ways that we can, cheat some value out of this. And the two best things so far are Darkwater Scourge and the Rekindler, which, again, I'll be talking about here in a little bit. But I really just want to take a moment to appreciate that once you level her up and once you find a unit that's worth, bringing back every turn, as long as it's tanky enough, it's very, very difficult to kill this card in combat. Unless they're playing PNZ or maybe they have Demacia in multiple single combats, this Kalista is just going to be able to keep attacking every single turn, and it's going to be very challenging from your opponent to come back from that standpoint with the amount of pressure you're throwing at them. So again, you combo this maybe less level up effect with Elise being in play and having her challengers, spiders being challenger for you, you really start to see how you can just control the battlefield and hit for 10 or 15 damage out of time that your opponent just can't block because your spiders took all their bigger units. So I really like this, and I've tried quite a bit in terms of, I know so many people are on the Lucian deck. I think it's really cool they can do like the Lucian and multiple Relentless Pursuits, but personally, I've been a huge fan as well of the Death Mark combo that you would see here with Shadow Isles and Ionia in general, so I got to give it up to this list. Moving on from there, I've kind of talked about all these in their different pieces, but what are kind of key spells that you should be looking forward to when running this list? So Mark of the Isles, again, it did get nerfed from a +3/+3 to a +2/+2. It's still a really great burst spell, and it's important to note here is that it helps you line up the Death Mark with more consistently because you have the ability then to say, okay, well, I have, this Kalista in play. Well, I'm going to give it a +2/+2 buff off Mark of the Isles, but then I'm going to use Death Mark to remove it and put it in my opponent's unit. Now, again, be very cautious if they have a Shadow Isles list, or if they have some way to remove their own unit, if they have open mana or something. Do not do it, because if this spell fizzles, you will kill your own unit. And obviously it's a huge feel bad moment, but it comes down to piloting the list, knowing when it's free, knowing when it's not going to be free, and then in some cases you just have to go for it, as they say, in case you're getting too much pressure back your way. If your opponent just drops some huge, like let's say Soul Gorger that's blocking your path, you're going to want to try to get out of the way, even if they have the 2 or 3 up, depending on how many glimpses they've already used up to that point, depending on what they might play their next turn, right? So there's a couple different considerations to do there, but I always call this the Mark of the X or Mark of Blank type of deck because of these two cards, right? Mark of the Isles and Death Mark play very well together. The last thing here is Brood Awakening, which is, again, another really strong MVP, both because it allows a free level up for Elise, so a automatic level up, I should say, in one card, right? You're going to produce 3 spiders. If they pass, you automatically get to level up. It's great. But then also with Kalista, right? You just need to see 3 units die. So a lot of times you'll just play out the Kalista, have this on the next turn, and then just be swinging for 6 damage. And depending on the matchup, they might just take it, and that's actually fine, right? Because then you can still block with it on your turn, or they'll just, bounce your Kalista, and then maybe it feels a little bit bad, or they'll deny this, right? But this one card can apply so much pressure to your opponent, while at the same time being a huge benefit for both Elise and Kalista. So Brood Awakening, it got changed in the big buff patch, if I remember, about a month and a half ago now, and it's just been insane ever since. They reduced the cost again. Getting a bunch of spiders for just chump blocking is also very strong in more mid-range and control decks. Just all around, it's a very, very strong card, and definitely one a lot of decks are playing right now, so something to keep in mind as well. And then why this becomes a more aggressive package, right? There's this kind of 2-card combo that we saw very early on in Legends of Runeterra, and I mean like right after the open beta, finally launched in like that first couple weeks, was Ravenous Butcher and Cursed Keeper. On turn 2, you play these two. You have an ability where now you're open swinging for 7, and in some cases, if your opponent doesn't have a early play, 7 damage is enough to just win the game all out. And then maybe if they even stumble on that third turn, or maybe they have a Mystic Shot and they just remove your Ravenous Butcher, you're still then hitting them for 4, right? So in some cases, it's kind of an awkward card to, always aggressively mulligan for, but it's so strong in certain matchups. But then it's also not to be missed here is that Ravenous Butcher is also a free kill spell for Kalista. So a lot of times what will happen is you'll get 2 free deaths early, and then your opponent will go, oh no, the Kalista's on board, I can't block anything else. Well, you can swing out, see what they do, and then play this after the fact so Kalista gets her level up. Or if you know that you already have a unit that's going to be in your graveyard that's worth bringing back, if it's a Darkwater Scourge or something, then go ahead, sacrifice it, level up Kalista, and then swing, right? If they have a Will of Ionia, obviously your Kalista is going to still level up in that scenario. You just won't get the value off of attacking with immediately. Maybe that feels a little bit bad, but generally if you've left 3 mana up, right, then you can just replay it. In that case, maybe they don't play the Will, but it feels pretty good when you get to pull this off. And then the kind of the last 2 cards, I've really danced around these, right? But I think it's important towards the discussion of Kalista in terms of how these 2 pieces really pull together. So Darkwater Scourge, right? As I mentioned, this is kind of the key play a lot of people have been using for Deathmark because if you have this plus Deathmark on 3, you now suddenly have a 5/5 life stealer that sticks around. And against some more aggressive strategies, this is going to hold them off for generally enough turns. And I found that 1 is usually good enough to help you stabilize, but 2 will just automatically win the game. In a lot of cases, too, your opponent will maybe play out a few things to the board, thinking they're trying to set up a big attack, and then you can play a Dark Water. You know, you can stop them from attacking in some situations. So it's okay to let one of these die early just so your Kalista can bring it back, but it's important to note that Kalista brings back the strongest, so you have to decide, am I playing a Darkwater Scourge type of deck where this is really strong, or do I need Rekindler? Because what's really nice about this list against those more mid-range and late-game stuff is that you can set yourself up to just loop Rekindler off Kalista, so then Kalista attacks, summons back Rekindler, Rekindler triggers, the other Kalista goes back to your bench. Then you have 2 of them in play. Next turn, you attack with 2 Kalistas, you summon 2 Rekindlers, and then you have 4 of them on your board. So you very quickly see how this just continues to loop itself. And to be fair, I don't think I've ever had a game go towards that like 3 Kalista attack, because generally they're just dead at that point, because 1 Kalista attack is 9 damage. And again, keeping in mind that Fearsome is very, very strong. So against a lot of those very heavy spot removal types of decks, Rekindler really does go the distance, and Darkwater in that case just doesn't do enough for you. But again, if you mess up, so to speak, if you play the Darkwater early and it dies, you will break up that combo. So you do have to be very mindful about how you're playing this out. But again, I think Rekindler just in general, we've seen how strong it is in Shadow Isles, and the champions are bringing back, and it continues to be strong to absolutely nobody's surprise. But I'm really looking forward to using Rekindler in the next set just to bring back some of the new champions that we're seeing. I think the spoilers have been pretty good so far. Kind of one of the last little mentions here is Shadow Assassins, right? This is a card that has just been around forever in every deck that plays Ionia, really. I sincerely don't think there's been a list that is heavy enough in Ionia that hadn't played 3 of these. And even in some of the Allegiance variants, they were like Shadow Isles Allegiance, right? You'd played 3 of Shadow Assassins. It's just a good card. It's a 3-drop 2/2 with elusive, so chances are you're going to be able to get a few free points of damage. But then also when it comes into play, you draw a card, right? So you have this opportunity now to where this card just cycles itself, and you have the option to dig deeper into your deck and try to find those things like Deny, Will of Ionia, whatever your spells are or battle tricks you're ultimately going to be looking for, or just Deathmark, right, at the end of the day, if you need to have it. So this is one of those cards that, like, it's fine. It's a good, solid card, but at the same time, I'm like, I really look forward to the day where we have an Ionia deck that doesn't just automatically play 3 of these. And, it's just a good value card at the end of it, and it's going to be interesting to see what might replace that, but at least with, so spoilers we've seen so far, and there's a lot more to go, but I see this sticking around for most of set 2. I could be wrong, but there's just too much value that this one card provides. And then again, if you see like 2 or even 3 of them in the match, you're very far ahead in that case, and it feels very, very strong when you get to live those dreams together. So again, huge shout out to Teal Red for kind of the initial inspiration of this list. And I don't remember who made the original Zed Hecarim list, which is basically the same exact shell as this. But this variation, right, this Shadow Isles Ionia list has been around for quite some time with the double mark play, or again, Mark of Zekarim, or the Zed Hecarim deck that it was. It's just a fun list to play. I don't know, at least at the time of recording this, I've played quite a few games with Lucian Kalista. I've played quite a few games with this. I think it comes down to personal bias. I like this better because you do have access then to things like Deny and, Deathmark and Will of Ionia. Those are 3 very strong Ionian cards where with Demacia, really, you're getting like the Relentless Pursuit side of it. You're getting Radiant Guardian, which can just be a better lifesteal unit in a lot of cases, right? If you're saying Darkwater versus Radiant, yes, Radiant costs more, but it has toughness as lifesteal. It's more likely to stick around. And then you have things like Back-to-Back too, which can help out quite a bit. But I think really losing out on some more of the control elements that can really help shore up some matchups, it's just not for me. So if you like the more pure all-out aggro builds, you're definitely going to want to do a more Lucian Kalista variant. But if you're looking for something that has very aggressive openers but then can still play a very strong late game, this is it. This is a list to play. And again, I don't know if this is overall the best Kalista list, and I'm sure a few of these numbers will change, but it's my favorite, and that's why I want to do the video on it. So with that, that's kind of a quick overview of the deck today. We're going to record some games here and let you get into those next. But again, I really hope you guys enjoyed this. And if you have other Kalista variants that you've liked, let me know in the comments. I'd love to see the different inspirations, the different brews that people have been putting together just to see what this might look like. So enough rambling. Let's get into the games. All right, getting into our first game. What do we have? Ooh, so this is probably a Karina control list, which is what a lot of people have been playing lately, so this is probably a pretty good test of what this can do. And I definitely think some of the more aggressive openers are okay. So maybe we keep the Ravenous Butcher. Shadow Assassins is pretty good. Glimpse is nice because it can blank some of the removal and draw some cards. But in this case, I think we're really trying to dig for those more key openers that we'd want to see.
That egg, did it move?
And again, here we're kind of just hoping that they're going to miss on their Elise. Now, again, like we can still attack, right? Because if it's Elise versus Elise, the advantage goes to the attacker in that case. But kind of our follow-up beyond that is not as exciting.
Bite.
If I remember correctly, they don't play Mark, right? Okay, so just getting 2 damage on here.
We could use a bite.
So they probably have like a Vile Feast then for the next turn. No other real reason to do that. And if that's your play anyways, right, just save the spell mana.
Please, I have connections.
Yep. Opponent just kind of taking the block where they can, which is fine because it shuts down, you know, our Ravenous Butcher if we wanted to use that here. But again, save it until you get more value, like off a Curse Keeper or something. Great, so now we have our Deathmark and Dark Water, so this is just going to kind of hang back. We could save this, but in this case, I think we're just going to let it go. Play our Shadow Assassin, maybe draw a couple more cards here. Again, looking for more aggressive lines of play here. And also a 5/5 is very hard for, you know, their decks to deal with outside of just like actual vengeance. Our opponent definitely trying to min-max their plays, it would seem. If I'm my opponent, I probably would have just open attack there without any pause.
I will play my part.
Just because I'm not ever gonna block with this. I'm not gonna open myself to a Vile Feast. I could have played the you know, the Curse Keeper here with this, but I kind of want them to think that this is kind of our only plan, and you know, best case we just remove 2 of their blockers. Oof. So no deny here is a pretty big sad. That was a very big play for our opponent. And now again, we find ourselves just behind a wall of spiders. And this is kind of where the meta has been. Like, this is a very common thing to see right now. So ping effects, Withering Wail sort of thing is very strong right now. And if they play an Elise right as the last spot, I mean, this is an auto level up for her. But at least we have at least one answer for it. We're going to go ahead and throw out some blocks here, just because we have a whole lot of not much else going on. And trying to see if we can get our opponent to play anything else. Because again, even the Dark Water here, just not having a ton of value for what we like. Alright, so more removal coming our way. So we are just going to kind of do some more digging here, right? Because it would require them to have another Mystic Shot. They'd have to have their 3rd Mystic Shot in this case. So if it's going to die anyways, let's just get some value out of it. Draw some cards. Getting a ton of removal, but unfortunately we need to see some like Mark of the Isles so we can pump our elusive unit. And again, also interesting that they didn't decide to just take this out when they could. But I think we have to be a little bit more reserved here, play these Dark Waters later, but this is also a case where Rekindler would be better value for us long term. So we're going to kind of play out the next few turns, see where it goes. We might hold these Dark Waters just so we can do our Rekindler loop and go from there. Well, kind of a odd spot, right? But potentially this can get through for damage because these spiders aren't big enough to block it yet. Also, partially the issue of having only 2 Rekindlers in the list versus maybe 3. If you're going in all in on the looping strategy, you know, it would be better. I kind of just want to bounce our own unit. Our opponent's not going to have a lot of good targets in his deck for us to bounce. Unfortunate at the end of the day, but like this is better for Ladros like late game if we have enough health to play with. Kind of a bummer. I don't want to give him the life gain, so we'll just go ahead and sacrifice this. We have a lot of 3-drops we could play in our deck, so this opens up hopefully another draw opportunity for us. And there's our Ladros, so that will help out too.
They cannot hide.
I guess if we're going to play this anyways, right? It's a 1-1. He's probably not going to block, but it gets us in a extra point of damage at least. And then unfortunately, we're in kind of a rough spot, you know, on the backswing here. Again, he's not gonna block this. It does nothing, and I can't block with it, so he's not gonna give us the 4/4 here. So because our opponent played this, we're definitely in a bit of a rough spot. We have to kind of go for our more, you know, staying alive play, as it were. And I think, what is that? 3, 4, 5. Oh, please just 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So they could actually just have a burn spell here. So we do unfortunately have to throw this under the bus, block what we can with it, and then use like our Dark Water to try to restabilize, gain some more health, right? Because we got to stay out of Karina range long term. Okay. Our opponent might just be digging for burn spells in this case. Or they just have it naturally, right? Going wide and having burn is very scary when it pops off. Okay, so they're not going to have their own death mark or anything. And I think we're just supposed to bank the spell money here, make them think we have something we don't, and then just try to open swing with this, right? If they have the 3, we're just dead to them having a burn spell for this either way. The 5 shouldn't make a difference in the grand scheme of things. Ooh, the deny backup, though, makes me question that, right? So that's 7, that's 10 total. Actually, so we can in fact do all of this. And we're exactly a turn under both Karina and Ladros. Okay, so this is actually a very good deny target for us. It's another reason why I didn't mind just kind of ripping it off as it were, right? We could actually play the Elise here too, just for an extra value, right, if they have 2, but I think the death mark is more important, just forcing our opponent to have some kind of action here. The question then becomes, like, do they have double ruination, right? We got to preserve our life total, try to get some beefy health linkers on board, and not just die to a single Karina, which, again, they could still have. It's most likely that both of these will end up dying, because 3 is a very good number for her to hit. But then at least we have a Ladros to kind of chunk their health after the fact.
Where are you?
But they only have 3 cards, right? If they play the Ruination there, I'm going to think that they don't have it. And if they do, I'll just cry anyways. Getting to slam this Ladros is going to feel pretty great. You know, unless our opponent has his own, then it's going to cause some awkward board states. But at least we have our own will to, you know, punish his more higher cost plays. But again, that was a very clutch deny, thankfully. But I mean, if he's sitting on like Karina, this is the turn he plays it, just because it helps get these off the board. Okay, so that tells me he doesn't. And he can't play Ruination, so this should just be 3. Again, much emphasis on a should, right? And again, he doesn't open up the opportunity. He can't play his own commander here to hurt us. Okay, so there's really digging. Okay, so pro tip, you're supposed to do this after resolves, right? Because this effect goes on the stack, and then you still chunk it down. So They should have had more health here. They unfortunately messed that up. And now this is just lethal by itself. They could still have some ping effects, but this should be GG. And then we can even mark up one of these guys in case he has like another ping, and then death mark the other target.
You have to get me out of here.
It's kind of rude.
Please, I have connections.
Again, I think these two have kind of done their job at this point, thankfully. And again, Deathmark, just a very strong card. I think this showcased that very well. And again, I think this is a good point. Like, I just want to show a couple games, you know, back to back, show somehow some of the interactions might go. But if you're looking forward to more of these matches, you want to see it kind of as it plays out over several turns, then just stop by. Yep, kind of figured. Just swing by on Twitch. That's definitely the better spot to see more of these matches kind of back to back. But right, some of our late game players our opponent could have had there, Karina would have just been able to wipe our board and put our health very, very dangerously low. So our opponent still had some outs there, but that deny on the Ruination was clutch for us. And then having the Ladros, right, to just cut their HP in half. Any Shadow Isles deck that wants to go long, you probably have a one of Ladros just because of how good it is at the end of the day. So that's one match out of the way. Let's go into another game. All right. Ooh, Kinko Elusives. So probably another good matchup here. For those that don't know, Elusive's still as good as ever. Then it just plays that as kind of a aggressive champion, which is a perfect fit for it because you can save it with like Elixir of Iron. So this matchup can get a little weird, actually. So seeing the Dark Water plus Deathmark is nice, especially if we can get them under the deny play. Vile Feast can ping away the Duo Glade, and Elise is just a good opener. So I think this is probably one of the better hands we could ask for. Usually I like seeing a Shadow Assassin just so you can trade block, but we'll have to see kind of what other value we can get for it. One of the scariest things that they can do with this deck, with the Kinko, if it hits, is pull out 2 additional Omen Hawks, and then they just give a free buff, you know, +2/+2 to the other stuff that's on top of their deck, which, if it's the right cards, I mean, it's gonna, you know, sometimes win on its own right. But otherwise, our opening hand here is pretty much a play for itself type of thing. We have potentially Elise into a Vile Feast into the Dark Water mark play. So, okay, well, they just casually have 2 Open Hawks off the top. It's good that they're not playing their Elusive, you know, this turn per se, but they can still get one off the top. They might block the Spider just to block it here. You know, in this matchup, you're generally not going to be able to flip Elise anyways. But if we get another Vile Feast, maybe we can get it that way too. I actually really love the Kinko Elusives list because some openers you'll just have like, you know, the all-in elusive package, which is really nice. In other games you can play like this really weird mid-late game Jeweled Protector game where you just have like a massive Zed, or sometimes the Jeweled Protector, you know, just buffs the 1/1 that's a the 1-drop that's a 2/1 where you can get value off of it that way as well. So there's a lot of different things you can be doing with it to kind of give you that value over time. So here it's gonna be a little bit more interesting. The Zed is certainly going to be able to get in for some damage here, but we can at least get a Vile Feast on it now and kind of threaten a Vile Feast ping, even though most likely we're going to line up the Deathmark, Darkwater play next turn, but that's a little bit more difficult to resolve in kind of what we want to be doing here. So we can either go for the board cleanup, or again, just kind of pressuring him, making him think that we have another one of these. Or, again, if we really wanted to, we could just bounce it back to his hand, but I think we actually do want to kind of play this out. And then again, on the next turn, we'll have 6 mana anyways. So we're going to do it this way because, again, he probably wants to bounce these targets for his, I don't know why I'm forgetting the name now, but his Conscriptor, right? So this also can force another unit off his board. So unfortunately, we do have to take the kind of chump block here, take 3, because we don't want his Zed to flip right away. But on the next turn, you know, we have a ability here to swing through for some more damage. And here we could also sacrifice our Spider, because again, in this position we're not going to sacrifice her anyways. We have a second one, plus this also threatens the Zed. Now again, they could have a Elixir to save it. That's kind of unfortunate, but I'd rather try to push in the damage kind of where we can. And this way, if they save it, then we can follow up with the mark play as well.
You will suffer long.
Again, very tempting to play the Kalista here, But again, trying to go for these two cards together, because most likely they're going to develop something here, and then they're not going to be able to bounce the Zed back to hand.
Everything's better with company.
Okay, interesting. So they technically still have enough, but I'm not sure if I put them on it. It'd be a really weird line, right? They didn't bounce any of the Omen Hawks, so this should just be free. And they don't have Will, they don't have Deny. This should be able to connect for us. Or it's like a very real 300 IQ, you know, he saw right through it. But based on his hand, it tells me that he didn't have it. Or based on how the Omen Hawks, you know, both went under. And even then, we still get a 5/5 out of it, right? Lifesteal.
Darkness.
Oh, hey, there was the other Vile. There was the other Vile Feast that we wanted. So, again, we're not out of this yet. Oh gosh, that's. Whew, that's terrible. Certainly not out of this yet, but we do have we're gonna take a lot of damage off this. And again, we could bounce this so it doesn't just punch us in the face, but we can stop the 4/5. You know, we take 10, and then the Kalista comes back for us. Because these two can't block, it forces him to block in the next turn. It's not terrible.
They'll never see me coming.
Good grief. I think now we do have to just kind of take the ping, as it were, right? This is scary, to say the least. I mean, he has a win here if he has Twin, right? There's nothing we can do about it. Yep. So we can stop one, and we go to exactly... Or I guess we don't die straight out, right? Because we're going to be able to stop some of this. But it's going to be very hard for us to pull back on this.
We must all make.
The 5's going to connect, but this duo is still a very real threat from our opponent. But this is just going to come down to pressuring him back, and then we have the Will of Ionia as a bounce, which can be pretty good. Actually, yeah, because we can't do both of these, so I think we do have to just kind of send this in, as it were. And if the Kalista too, right, they'd have to block with one of these. So, what is it? So they block. Their two fearsomes would have to block this, which means, yeah. So they still have more than enough here to stay alive, as it were. So instead, we're gonna go for the Kalista level up and hope that the Will can connect. Maybe again we were supposed to play this, but I'm a little hesitant to just not have the Will of Ionia come through for us.
It will be done. I'll take care of this.
And again, they could have their own bounce here to deny the life gain as well, which would be unfortunate, but not out of the realm of possibilities of what they might have. So this happens. We have some stuff die, Kalista. So, you know, as long as we can get through this next turn, we should be okay. Because the Kalista then can start bringing back some better units for us. Because again, assuming that this is going to die then. Because I can't imagine that they just open attack with this, right? So we now bank 3. We get to play this, so it sacrifices to bring back Kalista every turn, and then we just gain a bunch more life.
First step's the hardest.
Yep. I mean, we can't beat a deny if they have like more pumps for this, right?
Let's move.
So interesting here, like we can't block, so they'd have to do this first. So, yep, we just let that happen. And now we're just gonna gain 10 life, you know, out of it. Trying to be careful about how we're spending our resources here too. You know, the Brood Awakening might be able to do something for us, but our opponent most likely has denies, or they just have a way to bounce this without letting us get back our 5 attacker.
We'll be done.
So we want to try to get this in, you know, where we can in this case. Yep. So this hurts a little bit. So in this case, we're just going to go for a draw, since it's not going to connect anyways. And again, they're stuck with a 3-2 then in this case, right? So maybe this is okay for us. Deny is a very good pickup. And so is that. So kind of as I mentioned, right, Shadow Assassin is just a good card for stalling out, especially against elusives, right? It cycles itself. Now we have this Kalista on board, and we have a blocker for his only elusive threat. So this pretty much played out exactly how we needed it to. He could still have Jeweled Protector into Zed, which would be a little bit of a bummer, but I think we're feeling pretty good thanks to the Shadow Assassin here. I guess technically we could play this for blockers too, because right, we're gonna go up to 9 and have 2 back, so that's 11. So we're 1 short if we want to do like will plus double deny, and they have 2 cards. I don't think we need it. Okay, well, double will, double deny. If anything, they have probably like go all in on 1 card, and then we're still feeling pretty okay about it. So that's a little unfortunate, right? Because it's life gain, and that's pretty annoying. So what do we have? We have 12, which would be bounce plus deny, then makes it a 2-2 again. And they can't buff it for 4, so it'd have to be block here, bounce this, and then our Kalista stays alive, gets us some more life in the next turn. Oh, good grief. Okay, so now they don't have deny, which means we have to play this. Block this, bounce this. And then get them on the next turn.
It's too late for you.
The question is, what's this in their hand then, right? Like, that's kind of scary. And they can't replay anything, so this should just be lethal then. Because it's this plus the big guy coming back. Right, because it's 2, 4, 6. I guess it could be like their own bounce spell. But I don't want to give them a priority to play the 2-2, because then it's not lethal, right? If that's kind of their go about it. And again, really relevant here that it's a 4-4 versus a 5-5, so this still survives and gains us life on the end while pushing through the extra damage. Good game. Who was that? Poison Leech. Good game. Appreciate the proper Shen emotes there. So, kind of bummed we didn't get to see their last Jeweled Protector card in that case, but they had very strong Kinku elusive turns. Like, that is the types of turns that your opponent wants to be having, but again, getting the clutch denies when we needed them as some possible outs. The double wills helped, and again, just Shadow Assassin really helping carrying the weight there, because it gave us that free block that we needed it. So again, I kind of mentioned up front, but Shadow Assassin is just a very strong card. At the end of the day, it cycled itself, gave us a free block, gained us, what was that 4 health technically? Or we could have blocked the other one, we would have gained 5 health, effective health, important there. But overall, just very solid. And again, it kind of played out a little atypical for how that first couple turns play went on our end, but then you got to see the value, right? We talked about Kalista being able to loop back Dark Water turn after turn, and especially in that matchup where the Kinku elusive deck wants to close it out on certain key turns, having that Dark Water be able to loop back and sacrificing the one when we did helped us restabilize and kind of get back ahead. And again, a 5-5 is just very, very beefy. Again, depending on your meta, right? So if you're facing a lot more aggressive decks, then make sure you have 3 Dark Waters. If you're facing a lot more control decks, then go in the other direction. Make sure you have 3 Rekindlers in your list. Cut back to 2 Dark Waters, I would say. And then maybe take them out completely if you're seeing just those all-in, like, stall out till turn, 10 type of decks. Because then you really do need the engine of Kalista turning turn after turn with Rekindlers, so you're getting more targets that they're really starting to struggle to deal with. Now, again, that 4-4 that from Rekindler's body versus 5-5 is Dark Water is actually a huge deal. I don't want to kind of undersell that in this video. Like that itself is a big deal in terms of the survivability and your opponent being able to answer them. So keeping in mind they definitely both have their own pros and cons. So again, I really like this list. I'm not sold if it's better or worse. I'd say it's equal to the Lucian list, at least right now, until I, kind of tweak out the other bits of it. But again, shout out to Teal Red. They've been playing this nonstop on ladder. Again, not this exact list. I just took their 2 champions in combinations, and I said, okay, well, this is probably what they're playing. I still have not gone to look at their actual deck because I want to go through like this whole organic experience of, having like a deck building prompt, as you will, and kind of going through it, talking about like what cards I like, what cards I don't like, and then also there's something to be said about the EU versus NA meta, and how that might be slightly different. So the list by that alone might not be the exact same, but that said, I'm pretty confident in kind of where this ended up and kind of what types of cards they would end up having anyways. So I hope you guys enjoy this video, enjoy this list. Again, I'm so happy, and shout out to the Play Runeterra team. It took a while, we will say that, but Kalista is finally in a playable spot, and I really do like the new effect. Now, with the new champions that are coming out, obviously I'm going to be way more excited, going to be doing a lot more brews with them, but we still have, 9 days at the time of recording this or whatever it is to play with set 1. So it's just so fascinating that we're right before set 2, and we're still getting kind of these new lists popping up. Now, again, someone might say this is just the Zed Hecarim list kind of reskinned. That's partially true, right? There's only so much you can do, but at least Elise and Kalista being in the same list now, kind of playing off one another very, very well, is nice to see. So again, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more Legend of Runeterra content, don't forget to subscribe. I try to upload these when I can. I like these more offline videos because I think that they just look better. They're a little bit more professional, for lack of a better word. But I think going forward, I'm going to have one video like this and then another video per week that's just kind of stripped right from the stream, just because it's easier on my schedule and I can still more consistently get out 2 videos per week, at least of more of these deck types and gameplay types of discussion. So with that, I'm out of here. Take care, and I'll see you all next time. See ya.
We'll be right back.